Because that's actually like where I want to start with this movie is how in the hell did you make this movie? Who allowed this? How did you get in? Because it seems like retrieving hostages from foreign countries is such a sensitive situation. And I was like, y'all had cameras up in this?
Yeah.
And you like end up in the movie?
Yeah.
And like, so like how
Not
did...
entirely comfortable with that, but he did, yeah.
I mean, your face is out there now, sir. But so the genesis of this is where I'd like to begin.
Sure.
Because whoa.
I saw Roger in August of 2022 on a rooftop for drinks.
Nice.
And he said, I'm in this new job, special presidential envoy for hostage affairs, and 25% of my caseload is in one country, Venezuela. Fast forward a month or so, and I'm on the tarmac in Miami as these two narco sobrinos, the two narco nephews, are being loaded onto a plane. And then later that day, I'm in San Antonio as the 7 Americans came off. And that was the beginning. But it was, to your question about access, I asked the White House, you guys consider this your signature foreign policy achievement? Can I cover it? And I think the answer was, it was yes. And then over time, you're there so long, you're like wallpaper. They forget about you.
Mm-hmm. The mark of good documentarians.
But I want to jump by the one moment, like him being on the tarmac, both in Miami and in San Antonio, really moved him emotionally. And like that, he didn't know exactly where the story was going to go or how it was, but it was like he was like, I have to tell the story.
I get that as a viewer for sure, because I'm on the edge of my seat this whole time, knowing that like this is real. These are people's lives, and just to I don't really want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but it's such a journey of ups and downs, and like that's your life. That's your job. It made me laugh when you say in the movie, like, the longer the title, the less important, because I was like, honey, no. But, like, how do you weather that storm emotionally? Because you're spending so much time and going through so much.
I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I know that this is a job that requires everything. You can't hold anything back. If you do, it's not right for the families. It's not right for the people you're trying to get out. So it requires full commitment. You have to bring every part of yourself to every moment, every day. And I did that for 5 years, and people suffered. I lost some of my relationships with my family, which I'm obviously, now that I'm not in the job, trying to rebuild some of those things. But I think my family members also understood that if you're doing this, it requires full commitment. How I did with the emotional ups and downs, in a way, it just became part of the fabric of the job. I didn't think about it, didn't process it, didn't run from it, didn't run towards it. It just was what the job was about. And with the up and down, the harder part was making sure that the family members were tracking even our failures. And that might be the hardest part about the job, is calling a family member and telling them that your awesome plan to get their loved one back just failed, and you have to start again from scratch.
Right. And it's, as you're talking, and it makes me think that just putting your head down and going is how so many of us live life, right? But with not as high a stakes necessarily. So it's like, wow, that seems stressful. Like, yeah, I'm looking for like, do you work out a lot? Like, what? Do you take like a lot of magnesium? Like, what do you?
A quick story. So someone asked me, like, how do you deal with all the stress? And I said, well, when I go through a stressful moment, I put it in a small box and I file it into my head and lock it up.
Oh, you compartmentalize.
I do. And that person said, well, at a certain point, I know you're going to have to pull those boxes out and examine them. And I truly was caught off guard. I'm like, why? Why would I do that? It's packed away. I'm just going to keep it there.
Okay, so no therapy for Roger.
No therapy
Moving
for
on.
me.
Well, and there's, I'll say that, he's going to kill. Yeah.
Do it.
We were in Canawan. I sat in the negotiation with Roger and his team and the Venezuelans in this small island in the Caribbean. And Roger's interlocutor is this pretty serious fellow named Jorge Rodriguez, who has been vice president of Venezuela, very tough guy.
Sounds tough.
Didn't get voted his way to the top, as Roger puts it in the movie. And he is a psychiatrist by training.
What?
So I said, what do you think about this one? He goes, he's beyond therapy. So when an adversary of the United States is looking at our presidential envoy, it's like, he's too far gone.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Sorry.
The thing I was going to add was that there's actually, and I don't know if you realized this until sometime later, but there's a physical representation of Roger's compartmentalization. He's constantly writing in notebooks. He's constantly taking notes wherever you go. In many scenes in the movie, you'll see a notebook tucked into the back of his waistband. And he's writing constantly. And then when he fills a notebook, he puts it on a shelf. And we said, do you ever go back and look at those? And he said, not often.
But, it's interesting because it's, for the families, of course, like Roger, I mean, you've had a life of like service and training, and then you have the families, like imagine the stress that they feel. They have no guide. They have no way to be able to, like, who in their lives ever, like none of us would ever think, right? Like, I think that's the thing in the film, is you're living your life and then you get this call that one of your family members has been kidnapped as a part of like a political game. Basically, you don't know where to start. You have Roger, thank God, as somebody who's going to be your guide. But other than that, there is no, how are you supposed to live your life? What do you do? And that was a part of this film, was just understanding that kind of hellscape, right? That it is for these families.
And the empathy that you're talking about, I see in even your filmography as well, like working with Vice, and these are even your work as filmmakers, bringing these things to people. It's like a responsibility. The empathy there is so strong. Do you ever find that draining? Because it's you take it so seriously, clearly bringing these great stories to people, that shows through in your work.
It's interesting because it actually gives you, it's pretty energizing, because I think that's probably the thing that you will find amongst all of us, is that it actually gives you a massive sense of purpose and a reason to get up every day. And all of us here have been at the other end of Adam's multiple phone calls a day, hundreds, dozens of calls a day, but they're always about this like driving story. And that's kind of the bond that we have. I think that, it's an incredible like gift and responsibility. These families trust us with this story. You don't really have a choice, and I'm not trying to elevate what we do. It's just kind of,
I think you're allowed.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like a little bit. I'm just going to say, I'll be the one to say it, because it's, the fact that you all found each other is sort of a miracle that we get to enjoy and to appreciate. Because I had no idea that this even was a thing, because it hasn't touched me personally. And so, I mean, that's the best case scenario for documentaries, making us all smarter and more empathetic to each other, And I even, when you have a successful trade of people, of lives, it sounds so weird to say, but like when you have a successful experience, and like people are just, this is their lives, you're heaping love on you. Does that make you uncomfortable ever? Like, are you ever kind of like, you can stop, I'm good? Like,
well, I'd say a few things. Number one, I always felt it was my job and my duty. I was given this job by the president, and therefore to not give them all would be a dereliction of duty. And so when someone's thanking you for doing your job, you do feel a little bit weird. Secondly, those moments are so intimate and personal. When you watch someone, a man step off a plane and go into the arms of his wife that he's not seen for 8 years. I saw that one time, and you feel like you need to avert your eyes because it's so personal. And then a few minutes later, they come up to you, and you feel like it's a moment you should not be experiencing, because it should be about them, and you should not even observe, and yet you are a part of it. And so I say, there's always these strange moments.
You're the throuple in that. It's an automatic.
Yeah, but I'll say the last thing is that you also, as people are coming home, and Adam got to witness this on a few occasions, people are coming home and our phones are still working the next case and the case after that.
Sure.
So you might have a victory here, but you have 3 failures right ahead of you that you need to jump on in a fight to turn those into successes too.
Yeah, God, it just never ends.
No, it doesn't.
The good work never ends.
It never ends.
How, like, in your role in this, you're not on the plane. Are you relieved?
And it's stressful because you don't know what's happening on the plane when you're not on the plane.
So you're sort of in the role of the families almost.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm waiting expectantly too. But I do get, it's a privilege to get to see that moment of joy when people step off the airplane.
That was what was happening as I watched the movie in full view of strangers walking past me, sobbing at the end because just being able to give the mango off the tree, the fruit. I'm like, oh my god, it's amazing. Now, because like some of your background is in fictional stuff as well, and all of this stuff kind of ties super loosely in some cases to this kind of exciting government, stuff. Are you talking about a way to bring a fictionalized version of this to people as well? Has that crossed your mind at all?
It's not only crossed our minds, it's happening.
It's happening.
Yes! Oh my God! Who's gonna play Roger? Who's gonna be the other Captain America? Which, by the way, is what I tell people you are. I'm like, they call this guy Captain America. What a great moment. For people like me that didn't know anything about this before the documentary, I was like, with love, take a hike, Chris Evans. You know what I mean? With love. So it's happening. So, is it like early stage? What can you say about it?
It's fairly early stages, but it's moving along pretty quickly. The guy who's creating the show is actually here at South by Southwest with us.
Exciting, good.
To experience all of these moments with us. And we've sold the show to Hulu. And hopefully sometime soon.
It's a show. We get more than one episode.
Yeah.
Who do you think should play Roger?
Oh,
There's
God.
a great question.
Okay, has to be somewhat the balance that I think they need to strike is that they need to have gravitas. They have to be intelligent, but also there's an edge of fun. You're a very fun person. I actually would never be able to guess that was your job at one point. I would, again, respectfully, I'd be like, no, this is like the accountant that I actually stay with. Is your vibe? You know what I mean? Like a smart, but I trust, like that. And so, but also has to be like attractive. So
Well, now I'm uncomfortable.
yeah, good. That's also what I strive for in my interviews is like I lull you into a false sense of security and then I'm like, but you're hot, and then it's in the neighborhood of like a Clooney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
See where your head's at.
You see where my head's
Picking
at.
up what you're putting down.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's like I can't wait to every time I watch an episode of this when I know that it's been written and carefully constructed. The thing that my head's always going to go back to is what's the real life equivalent of this?
Right.
Because it has that groundedness and is really a thing.
Yeah.
What is it that you do when that is no longer your job? Because is it the case that when the presidency changes over, that it's,
It could be. I was appointed by President Trump and served in this position for a year under him.
Yeah.
And then President Biden kept me on for 4 years. And Trump chose not to keep me on for this next go around.
Okay, boo, go
and
ahead.
Yeah, what do you do after that? It's I'm still trying to figure that out. It
Yeah.
might be time to do a little writing, time to reconnect with the loved ones that in a way I was not able to be with the last 5 years, and then just try to sort out what's next. But I tell you one thing, it's uncomfortable in that I missed the mission, and at the same time, after 5 years, I'll look in the mirror and say, maybe I needed a break. So it
Right.
might have happened at the right time.
Something that I notice working in live news as well is that you get really physically addicted to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, so you know a little bit about that,
Sure
right?
do.
How do you also, I didn't plan actually, weirdly, I didn't think I'd want to talk as much about our feelings, but
No, but we are.
now that we are, it actually makes perfect sense.
No
Because
tissues.
again, no tissues. They weren't in the
Leave
budget.
those for the movie. Yeah.
Just use sleeves.
Yeah, the
There-
movie.
Oh, the movie.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. How do you recharge? What do you do?
That's a very good question and one I'm trying to answer every day. Obviously, you kind of lean into family and friends, and you make sure that you're also working basically with friends who become family.
There you go.
That's kind of the only way to do this in a sustaining way, because once you're in, you're all in. You never leave the stories, the people. They totally become woven into your life. Tonight will premiere, and the families will be there. The hostages, former hostages will be there.
Wow.
Because, they're your people. So you get energy from that, but you also, you compartmentalize in the moment when the stressful stuff is happening, but fundamentally you just integrate it all in, and that's really the key.
And just the phrase "integrate it all in," it makes me want to ask one of my last questions, which is like, what in the world got left out of this? It feels so comprehensive, but I suspect, as is the case with documentary, you shoot hundreds of hours or more.
There was a fair amount of, I would say, secret information that we couldn't put in the film.
Oh, speaking of which, one time Roger's like, no cameras, please. And I was like, damn, you never get to say that to documentary crew, Mr.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. No, there were things that went into the making of the film and kind of were, I don't know, catalytic in Avon's case, maybe. Yeah,
that's right.
I don't know how to talk around it, so I'll let the guy who's an expert in secret information talk about that.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that happen that are actually, I'll say, mind-blowing that we couldn't put in there. And yet, I mean, Adam was able to get so much film due to his incredible access and trust that he had with senior parts of the U.S. government that I think obviously he tells a compelling story. These three did a masterful job of that, as did the editor. And yet, there are some things that Adam and I would talk about, saying, "Man, if we could have put that thing in." But and you just have to go on. There's things that are classified. There are things that are not classified, but in a way are still too sensitive to put on screen.
Kill your darlings, as they say. Like, you can't ever get too attached to anything in a film, and so no extensive DVD extra features. Actually, that's kind of don't exist anymore.
But the essence, I would say, the essence of the whole negotiation is there.
Yeah,
and I think
I certainly felt like it was as an audience member.
Some of what is classified and wasn't on screen is sensitive, I think, in a government nature, but wouldn't necessarily read, I think, out there in the public. There's like another language, so it's like information. Not to be, as speaking as like as a filmmaker, I'm not sure I'd necessarily read out there in the world anyway, but definitely there was a protection there.
Add one other thing. It was the first time that I've had to withhold information from a family. We knew things that we couldn't share with them. Not wanting to get their hopes up. Also, it was classified, so so that was hard because they were on a spiral.
And you couldn't affect the outcome. I mean, everything that you say or do outside of trying to comfort someone or be respectful could potentially affect the outcome of a hostage negotiation.
Oh God, it's. I mean, in a significantly less serious way, like nature photography as well. Like, you see things happening.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But you have that sort of obligation as a documentarian to not interfere and to let it unfold, which can be tragic.
Really difficult.
Wow. Yeah. Oof. Did y'all have to screen this for any government officials before it was done?
Did not.
No.
Oh, you get final cut. Haha, United States.
I can say that they built up so much trust. Everyone in the U.S. government, me included, but also people from the White House, the CIA, the Department of Defense, Department of Treasury, they had so much trust with all these organizations that people felt like, you are allowed to come and have all this access. We don't necessarily need to be hovering over you. And we brought them in as a government so close. And you commented about the amount of access that they had. The access kept getting increased. Because they kept showing that this is a team that's not going to destroy an ongoing negotiation. And Adam would weigh this on his shoulders. He's like, I want to do this, but I don't want to screw up the negotiation, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting Avon and these other people home.
Yeah.
And we want to tell this compelling story, but we don't want to do something that screws that up. And we could see the weight that he was carrying, the weight that Subrata and of course Gene was carrying on their backs. And that actually gave us a comfort that they were feeling what we were feeling. And thus the access, of course, kept increasing.
I'm just thinking about what comes next. Like, if you were to direct any of those fictional episodes for Hulu, or if that's happened, that sort of like all of a sudden the access changes and it's so Hollywood again. It's like, oh yeah, not available that day. Sorry. You're like, I've retrieved hostages. How dare you? And you're like yelling at craft services, like, on. And speaking of which, I mean, all of this, and it fundamentally it's so serious, it's so real, but it also is incredibly entertaining. This is riveting, is probably a better word for it. And when I was digging through everybody's filmographies, I was like, oh God, Suits. Totally different vibe, different thing. But I was like, wow, this is the kind of compelling stuff that we all want to watch, that you're all a part of. And also wild timing, because it's like was it the beginning of last year that all of a sudden everybody starts watching old Suits on Netflix? Blows up.
Yeah, and it led to the new
one that just is running now.
Yeah.
And how was that for you, sort of as part of the production team that sort of maybe had put it to bed? Question mark?
It was, no, for sure. I mean, and the creator of Suits has said this too, like when the world is as it is and you see lots of things from the past getting revived for different reasons, and something like that happens during the strike, you start to suspect that maybe when the strike is over, a call could come in of some kind.
You're like,
it was just the nature of this specific call was weird because the script that became Suits LA started as something else.
Oh.
And still written by Aaron Korshin, still about lawyers, but he didn't imagine it as an extension of the original Suits. It was the network who suggested it, and we were totally open to it, and led to this next one. But it's a lovely thing to have happen.
Right, and then they're like, the classic Hollywood question: what else you got going on? And you're like, well, we're saving lives.
To me, the common link is character.
Yeah, right.
With that show, we took law out of the law show and just pushed characters forward. We approached this story. It was like, there was hostage rescues and stuff like that, but we were more interested in the people. And that's the thing about that television show too. It's more interested in the people than anything else.
Every time. I mean, and that is the heart of Take No Prisoners to me as well. It's like this is about the people. This is about the families. This is about the helpers. And I'm so happy that people like you are here with us.
Oh, thank you, Grae. Thank you, Grae. That means a lot.